In this video, we're just going to double click and dissect the little mistake that Max Verstappen made final corner first run in Q3 yesterday. It was a little bit out of character for Max. I just want to double click on what happened, why it happened, the technical reasons, and also the mental mindset reasons as to potentially why that happened as well. If you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Now look, an uncharacteristic mistake from Max Verstappen in the first run in Q3. Now look, I could, and I'm not going to, but I could sit here and say, well, I'd hate to say I told you so. You know, there's some, if you can frustrate Max Verstappen and get him to rock the boat a little bit, then there are mistakes in that. And then, you know, fast forward this weekend and we see a mistake in qualifying. Look, I'm not going to do that. I don't think that causation is necessarily correlation in this particular example. I don't think this was, you know, Max being frustrated or emotionally out of control or anything like that. What I am saying though is that if you continue to push those buttons and manage to get him frustrated, you can extract mistakes of the unforced variety out of Max Verstappen, and this was exactly one of those things. So look, just to repeat this, I'm not going to link those two there in terms of what's happened with George and what's happened in qualifying, but I do want to reiterate the point that there are mistakes in Max Verstappen and you've got to do your best to start to extract them out in this sort of fashion. So what actually happened? Well, he's going through that final corner and the first thing he picks up is understeer into the corner and all the way through the mid corner as well. And it pushes him out a little bit wider than he would have liked. So he just broke a little bit late, and obviously the car's been lacking front grip all weekend as well. So the car understeers, he pretty much runs out of road and he's still got the steering lock on. And what happens then is his timing is to go for the throttle. Obviously he's pushing, right? So he's not going to drive like a grandma here. He's not going to wait for this car to resettle before he goes to the throttle. He's going to ask the question of the car. So he goes for the throttle while he's got the steering lock on. And that's classic friction circle stuff, guys. If you know your friction circle, when you add a steering plus either a throttle or braking input, then you've got less capacity from the car. So he's got steering on, goes for the throttle. And this is quite aggressively the way he goes for the throttle. And it's just caused the rear to come around, guys. That's not unusual. Like we spoke in the preview show about this track being traction being very important at this track. We spoke also about the types of corners, how some of them are off camber, some of them go over crests a little bit as well and allow the rear to get light, and then therefore traction is an ongoing issue this weekend. And it was just really the understeer that caught Max's timing out because he was not prepared to wait for the car to rotate into the corner before he could apply throttle. Again, we've spoken about patience and Max Verstappen on this channel a few times as well. And guys, this is not criticism. This is just, I'm telling it how it is here. He was not prepared to wait for the car to rotate. He jumped on the throttle and then the back came around. So that's, like I say, guys, pretty standard, pretty normal stuff. I'm surprised when people come out and say, this is the car has thrown him off here. I don't understand that. I'm surprised to see people talking about the fiddle brake or inertia brake or the extra brake that rotates the car. Surprised to see people talking about that as well. Like, Max Verstappen's a human and humans make mistakes. And this was a genuine mistake pushing in Q3. What more needs to be said than that? I don't know. So analysis paralysis coming out in the social medias again. So that's what it was. Understeer, too much throttle, pushing in Q3, and humans make mistakes. Now look, the save of Max Verstappen, I mentioned this yesterday in my post-qualifying analysis. The save of Max Verstappen was excellent. Very, amazing, excellent. Like I said, if you give that same swapper, that same slide to anyone else on the grid, yeah, I'd lean more towards that car ending up in the wall than that car being straight and saved again. So that was the impressive part for me out of all of that, was that he manages to save the car and complete the lap and go fastest at that time as well. That was the impressive part. Let's jump over to just what he said in terms of some quotes as well. So one of the quotes that I've got here says, I think the whole weekend we've not found the sweet spot, unfortunately. And this is what I was speaking about it after the Friday practice. I say, I'll be interested to see if Max can dig himself out of this. Like he and the Red Bull did an amazing job in Qatar to turn this around. And that's what I was saying. The sprint race gives you a second chance here. And I said, if he can turn it around this weekend and get that car like on pole, I will be amazed. So I said, I'll be watching this weekend to see if he can turn it around and how. So here he goes. I think the whole weekend we've not found the sweet spot, unfortunately. Then in Q3, it was okay, but just not how I liked it. The car was never really planted. It was difficult in some corners and it made it very difficult to be consistent. So when Max is referring to how he likes it, he likes the front to go in and the rear to just follow. But he likes the front to sort of lead the way. It happened in many different corners because if you try to adjust one or two and then something else happened in another corner, the balance shift that we get throughout the corner at some tracks is a bit more limiting than others. So the balance shift throughout the corner, he's talking about how the car goes into the corner, how it starts to rotate in the mid corner, and then what happens when he applies the throttle on the exit as well. I'm not actually sure if Max is a big changer of the brake balance and differential settings, and they've got full control of the differential. It's a very powerful tool. Nico Rosberg was talking about this in the practice sessions as well. He was saying you've got control of engine braking, like for whatever ranges you want, like more engine braking, less engine braking. You've got control over the differential at different phases of the corner, diff entry, diff mid, and diff exit. And this is the case for opening up the diff entry and the diff mid in order to get Max into that corner. You know, and that's where his that's where his concern really was on the entry into the corner. So what I'm saying here is I'm not sure how much Max plays with those tools as compared to a Fernando Alonso or a Nico Rosberg. Those guys are constantly on the buttons, mashing everything. I'm not sure if Max does that. I have to actually brush up, and sometimes it's hard to. The teams have gotten very good at hiding the steering wheel from us by running it on a lower brightness or the angle of the wheel and stuff like that so that we can't see what's happening. So I'd be keen to see if any of you guys know, like, is Max adjusting things corner to corner to corner to corner? Because that's what you'd want to be doing as you come out through that flat right-hander. You've got to make it second nature for yourself so that diff entry and diff mid just come down and you open up that diff so that he can get rotation into this corner. So what I would be saying to Max here is, when you've got that different balance in different corners at different phases, use your rotation tools, which is your engine braking, your brake balance, your brake migration, your brake shape, your differential entry, mid, exit. You know, start to use those tools. I don't know how much if Max plays with that at all. That's interesting. That was my thought as I read this quote. The balance shift that we get throughout the corner at some tracks is a bit more limiting than others. So there you go. I think he adjusted the front wing as well for the second run. And he goes on to say, I made a front wing adjustment. I'm not sure whether he put more or less. I'm assuming he put more because he just had that understeer in the final corner. And my understanding is it probably threw the balance out. It pushed it more towards oversteer in some corners, and maybe it helped fix up the final corner. But yeah, he was obviously, this is what I'm saying to you guys is, this is Max pushing. This is Max under pressure. This is Max trying to extract, trying to overdrive and get everything out of the car. And with the way that final corner is, with over crest, slightly off camber, that sort of thing, it just caught him out. And I'm double clicking here because this is uncharacteristic from Max. You know, you don't normally see this sort of stuff. So again, it's not criticism. It's just interesting. So, and I can add some value as to why and how and so on. Now, another interesting quote that he adds here, Verstappen adds, yeah, but even there, the car was super sensitive through everything. As soon as I opened the wheel a little bit earlier or later, snapping everywhere. Now, a few people on social, they're not sure what it means, like to open the steering wheel. And it just basically means like when you add the steering lock to turn into the corner, that's one part. But the other part is how you open the wheel, and that's to like recenter the wheel and undo all of that steering lock as well. So when he says open the steering wheel, he's talking about, again, in accordance with the friction circle we spoke before, how do you open that wheel? How much and how quickly do you open that wheel? And how much does that add to your traction potential out of that final corner as well? So Max would have loved to open the wheel and bury the throttle, but he couldn't because he had the understeer. So that meant he had to keep the steering lock on. And that's where the dramas start, right? So then he goes on to say that snapping everywhere. So his engineer GP replies, your first run might have got you on the front row, but yeah, pole was a 22.6. So there you go. They're thinking he lost in the order of 2 or 3 tenths of a second due to that slide. Let's take a look at the telemetry now, because I'd be curious to see what happened on that run where the mistake was and what happened on that run in his final run as well. And was Max being a little bit greedy with the throttle like we saw there? Let's jump over the telemetry and have a look now. All right, here you go. Hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. So 24 Abu Dhabi Quali Max. And we're going to grab his quickest lap, the 22.9. This was the mistake lap. And then we're going to grab this one, the other 22.9. It was slightly slower, and see what happened, what could have been for Max. And generally the lap was slower. So this is him after he's made his front wing adjustment. Didn't really help out for him. It's interesting to see that I'm assuming he's added more front wing. And yeah, that's an assumption on my part. I'm not actually sure if he's added more front wing. I'm assuming because he picked up understeer in the final corner. So I'm just curious to see like at which places he was losing lap time. He's losing lap time through turn 5, and this is post the change, guys. He's losing more lap time here through this corner as well. So potentially it's more sensitive, or potentially he took front wing out of the car. I'm not sure. So what I wanted to double click on here was, and you can see it before we even zoom in, this throttle application out of the final corner, and see if, you know, what we're saying there is true. So what we're looking for is Max. So remember, this is the blue one here is his first run with the mistake. The white one here is his second run, which he got a better exit out of the final corner. You see the delta drop massively. And actually, I can give you an insight into how much time that cost him. So he, 2.5 tenths he was up, and they finished about 0.5 tenth apart. So it cost him 2 tenths. So there you go, guys. That's exactly how much it cost him. If you want to work out where that could have put him, if you just subtract 2 tenths from his lap time, he'd be on a 22.745 and see where he would have ended up. So check this out, guys. So on the blue lap, the one where he made the mistake, he broke much later. So it was interesting to see in the second run, he broke a little bit earlier, which was the play. And his throttle also, he carried it a little bit into the corner as well. So he's like quicker on the way in, and you can see that with the blue. But the part that Max has tried to be fast in and fast out. And what he's done here, if you see in blue, his throttle is coming on harder and stronger than what it did in the second run. So there's a point at which Max has got full throttle on that run, whereas on the second run, he's only got 91% down. And then you see him get out of the throttle when the car was facing the wall. And that's great reactions from when the car snapped to when he gets his right foot out of the throttle. So look, guys, like I said, I didn't see anything like unusual here. He's picked up some understeer. He's pushing on his fast lap. That's just what happens. But I wonder if he would have taken that risk and pushed that sort of margin had he known he had a car quick enough for pole position. So this is Max saying like, the car's garbage. I need to go all in here, and he's gotten the mistake and starts P5. So or maybe even P4 after Hulkenberg's penalty. So there you go, guys. Look, I hope that video helps you. I hope it gives you a little bit more of an insight into what happened. And if you have any other technical questions, leave them in the comment section for me below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. I'll catch you after the race.